Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Lenovo Miix 320. This is a little laptop, but it allows you to detach its screen. We've looked at a couple of similar devices over the years here on the channel, but I think this one is probably the best of the bunch that I've seen so far doing this for the last couple of years, and we're going to be exploring what makes this thing tick here in just a second. I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, that this is on loan from Lenovo, so when we're done with this, it goes back to them. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. The starting price on this one is $199, and that includes the keyboard dock. It has an Atom X5Z 8350 Cherry Trail processor, 2 gigs of RAM, and 64 gigabytes of storage. It's got a 10.1-inch IPS display. It runs at 1200 by 800. Not the brightest display in the world, but adequate. There's also a version with a 1900 by 1200 display. This one is running with that lower resolution 1280 by 800. There's also a version with 4 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, and that will cost a little more, and that is what we are looking at today. So there's going to be a few different configuration options, but the performance you're going to see out of this one should be pretty close to what you'll get out of the $200 version, because they are all running with the same processor. Really nicely put together here. It comes in two portions. We've got the tablet portion here where all the guts of the computer are. This portion weighs about 1.2 pounds or 544 grams. It is running the full version of Windows 10. This is not Windows 10S, so you can install all of your software on it out of the box without any issues. The keyboard dock here is all metal, really nicely spaced keys here. The letter keys are full size, and it's very nice to type on, at least for doing letters and emails and whatnot. But I did have some issues with the number keys because they are smaller and positioned a little off from where they typically are on a normal keyboard. So for example, your 1 key, which is usually somewhere over here on a regular keyboard, is nudged over here, and I've been having a hard time getting numbers typed correctly when I'm touch typing, but everything else has been fine for doing email and that sort of thing. I really like the trackpad on it, really responsive, and really nice stuff from Lenovo here. And again, I think for one of these detachable cheap computers, which we often see here on the channel, this is probably the best one I have tested insofar as its keyboard is concerned. It will feel a little top heavy though, because all of the guts of the computer are in the screen versus the base. Typically on a laptop, your guts are in the base and the screen is a lot lighter, so it won't tip over, but it will feel a little weird in your hand because most of the weight will be on the screen here. But it seems to hold itself together pretty well. It doesn't come off its keyboard dock easily here. It's got a nice magnet that guides everything back in when it's time to redock, but it's also very easy to pull it apart. So they've done a nice job engineering the whole system here to hold itself together pretty well when you are meaning to use it as a laptop. But again, you can very easily get it detached for doing all of your work on there. The total weight of the package here is 2.2 pounds with the keyboard, or 1 kilogram. The battery life on it, because it's running with one of these Atom Cherry Trail processors, is about 8 to 10 hours if you're doing casual work with it. So I think you'll have a really good experience just getting work done on this thing, which is what it's designed for. It's not so much a gaming device as it is a productivity device. A good number of ports on here as well. So on the side here, you've got a headphone jack on the tablet. Your volume rocker is over here along with your power standby switch. There's a webcam here for doing video conferencing. Nothing spectacular, but decent enough to get the job done. And they also included a USB Type-C port right over here. Now, it's going to be a little limited. It won't do all the things that USB-C ports can do on other computers. This is a data-only port, so no video output or power going in here, but it is nice to have this port here because typically they give you one of these little micro USB connectors that requires adapters to get your USB devices connected. This one will take any USB Type-C data device without issue, but it will not take power or video. But there is an HDMI output right here. This is a micro HDMI output, so you can plug it into your monitor or television set. It will support 4K resolutions, I believe, at 30 hertz, so not great on the 4K, but it is a $200 computer, great at 1080p, no issues there. And then your power adapter goes in over there. So it's got the USB-C, a little different implementation than we've seen typically, but it gets the job done. In the keyboard dock, you get 2 more USB ports. These are slower USB 2 ports, but you got one here and then one on the other side as well. So it does give you quite a bit of USB functionality at least. You won't get a lot of speed out of those 2 ports, but good enough for connecting a USB flash drive or something in a pinch. And what they also did here on the bottom of the device is they included a micro SD card slot. You have to pop open this little door here to stick the card in there, so you can augment its onboard storage with a card, which you could use for storing media and that kind of thing as well. So all in a pretty nicely constructed little tablet device. They even put the speakers up front here, so you get decent stereo separation as well. And again, I'm pretty pleased with what we've got here. So let's take a look now and see how it can perform. So let's kick things off with some web browsing and YouTube. I've got my 1080p 60 video here running, and it doesn't seem to be having any issues here. That's one of the things that these little Cherry Trail chips do very well, is playback 1080p content, especially at 60 frames per second. We're not dropping any frames, and everything seems to be working quite well there. I do recommend using Edge on these videos versus Chrome, and I've got a video down below that explains why. We'll take a look at some web browsing now and see how well it can get all those things done as well. We are browsing with a wireless AC connection here, 5 gigahertz, so we are on the latest and greatest here. You'll notice that it's not as fast as a i5 or i7 based machine is, but it is able to pull things up relatively quickly on the web, especially if you are not running too many things in the background. And that is one area where having 4 gigabytes of RAM does make a difference on these little computers. I'll put a link down below to a video that I did probably about a year ago with this same processor with 2 different computers, one with 2 gigs of RAM and one with 4. And you can see some of the things that you can do multitasking with 4 gigs of RAM that you may struggle with 2. But it is able to browse the web here quite well, and the tablet mode works nicely as well. My only gripe, though, is that the display is a little dim. And I also ran the browserbench.org speedometer test. It's a benchmark test that simulates using some web-based applications. And on that test, we got a score of 20. Not the highest score in the world, but it's adequate enough. And you can compare that to some other Atom-based devices we've looked at recently, namely the GPD Pocket, which was an even tinier computer than this one, that had the faster variant of this Atom processor. That one came in around 30 or so. So it's not bad. It's not going to be the fastest thing out there, but if you're just browsing the web and using it like a tablet, I think you'll have a pretty good experience here. And if you're running the Microsoft Office applications, they should run just fine on here. We've got Word running right now with a fairly involved newsletter template. Everything is rendering in pretty quickly, actually, especially considering the price point here, and it's also able to reflow text very quickly as well. So I don't think you'll have any real problems doing spreadsheets and all the other boring office work that you might want to do on it. Now, this is not a gaming device, but you can play some games on it. A lot of casual games like Minecraft do run fairly well on here. This is the Java version of Minecraft, the one that most people still run. I installed a performance enhancer called Optifine on it. It's a free plugin, and I'm getting frame rates around 20 to 30 frames per second, depending on what's going on in the scene. So that's not too bad. It's playable at least. It also works very well as a game streaming device. So if you want to stream games from your Xbox somewhere else in your home, you can do that to this machine as well. Steam in-home streaming is also another option from a gaming PC. That also works nicely. And there are a ton of indie games out on the Steam store that are worth checking out that will also run pretty nicely on this platform. So you do have some gaming options, just not any of the high-end AAA titles that just came out. And on the 3D Mark Cloudgate gaming benchmark test, we got a score of 1,441, and it performed exactly where I expected it to. One point of comparison is the Voyo VBook V3 Ultrabook, which is a generic overseas brand, but it's running with that very same processor. Same score on that other computer as well, so we're not seeing any performance degradation here at all. Now, one thing, though, to keep in mind is that this did not do as well on the 3D Mark stress test, which measures how often the computer will throttle down when it gets too hot. There's no fan on here, so the only way to mitigate a very hot processor is to run it at a slower rate of performance. And we got a score of 93% on that test, which isn't bad, but it's not in the passing territory for that test. But that's to be expected with a fanless computer like this. They're really not designed to be used under load. But I did test Kodi, which is my favorite media player, and I was able to run my Blu-ray MKV movies on it like we usually do without any problems here. So you can see we've got the Star Wars movie running here, no issues, no drop frames. Everything seems to be running just fine. I did have it run over a period of time as well, and it seems to be keeping up well. There was one skip frame here when I just got things started up. Sometimes when it kicks on, it does skip a frame here or there, but it was able to play this Blu-ray movie very consistently off of a MKV file that I have stored on an external SSD here. It is not so good, though, at HEVC files. This is a format that a lot of people are getting into now. So this is a 60 megabit per second HEVC 10-bit file, something that a lot of people are starting to get into, especially home theater enthusiasts, and this is unwatchable. So I think you're going to be fine with MPEG-4 and Blu-ray, but I would avoid probably going down the route of HEVC files with this particular laptop, but it'll be great for most of the media that you might want to play on it. So all in, I think this is a very nice little machine for the money. I really like the build quality on it. I do wish the number keys were a little better spaced on the top row there, but that's my only real gripe with this. I think for one of these cheap detachables, $200 from a name brand is a good deal, and you'll see performance that I expected to see out of this Atom-based processor. It's nothing new. It's decent enough to get the job done, especially for web browsing and Word, as you saw, and a couple of games maybe along the way also. And nice to see that they're packing in on the base level configuration 64 gigs of storage, so that should give you some flexibility for Windows updates and some other stuff. So all in, a pretty good deal and worth considering if you're looking for a very inexpensive Windows 10 based tablet that is also detachable, and there are a bunch of configuration options on this one as well. So let me know what you think. I did try to install Linux on this. I failed at doing so. There was no way to get the computer to select an external drive to boot from, and I really went through everything I could find. There wasn't any of those little buttons you can push on the Lenovo computers on this one to initiate that boot screen, so I'm welcome to any suggestions that you have, but I was not able to get Linux operating on this. I do think it would be kind of a cool platform for Remix OS or some of the other Linux-based operating systems out there, but no luck there. But definitely let me know if you've got some solutions to that down in the comments, and we'll do a follow-up. So that'll do it for the Miix 320 from Lenovo, and this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporter Kodi Falk. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.